All right, what's up, everyone? Almost Friday. One more day to go. Beautiful view of 432 Park Avenue as always. Right near the Trump Tower, Park Avenue. It is warming up in New York City, but still pretty cold. I think we have a few more days of cold and rain, and then we will be right back at it. Hey, NNB 45, what's up? Hope you're well. Long time no see. DC 322, what's going on? Yeah, volatility is back. Lots and lots of pretty big news. Something that just literally just hit across the tape maybe about 30 minutes ago. Donald Trump signed an executive order making it official that the United States creates a Bitcoin strategic reserve. Now, that's going to cause a lot of controversy, but I think it was the right thing to do. We'll talk about that and more tonight. Arlo, what's going on? Thanks for joining. This is Hey Tom. Thanks for the walk. Big money moving around the globe. It is what it is. Indeed, sir. Philip, what's going on? Vincent, 23. How are you? We're right by the Phillips, which is the big auction house here at 432 Park. Harry, what's going on? Sally is here. Beautiful night on Park Avenue. Now, we also have a lot of automation news that we should talk about. I'm not sure if you guys saw that article in the Journal today. It was all about how McDonald's is doubling down and tripling down on making their stores and their restaurants more efficient and more autonomous to improve the customer experience. It was a really interesting article. As you know, they partnered with Google to enhance their edge computing, which they're using Google Cloud for that. Now, all the way back in 2019, they had originally signed a deal, which was a pretty big deal with IBM. I don't really know what happened with that, but maybe IBM dropped the ball on it. I really don't know what happened. But now they do significant business with Google's Google Cloud, rolling out an edge computing platform for McDonald's. It was an interesting article. It went into a lot of things, but the CEO of McDonald's was essentially saying that there's a lot of moving parts of the restaurants, and which is really, let's just say it's not working well for customer experience, because at any one given time you could have a few things going on at the restaurants. You could have somebody ordering at the counter, right? You could have somebody ordering at the kiosk. You have a curbside pickup location at many McDonald's, and you also have a delivery section, right? People coming in and doing Uber Eats or Grubhub or DoorDash or whatever it is, right? So the digitization of that process should enhance the customer experience and improve order accuracy. So they're already rolling out different types of AI and edge computing that can triple and double check that their orders are correct before they head out the door. So that'll be some bullish spending for the tech companies. We'll talk about that. DC 322 says also tariffs have been paused once again, but the market's still, yeah, for sure. Now, the thing that I've concluded about the tariffs, and I think many of you would agree, I think at this point, I would really tune out the tariff news as an individual investor, and just anybody who's interested in business or the markets. I honestly wouldn't worry about it, because you read one article and then it's out of date, right? So this is all the administration's strategy to help negotiate better deals for the United States and essentially get what they want. So it has been my opinion, doesn't mean I'm right, that the administration is going to be using the threat of tariffs to, lobby better deals, get countries to hold up on their promises and the like. So I actually don't believe President Trump when he campaigned about how we're just going to throw tariffs on everybody and it's going to bring in so much money for the economy. It's going to bring so much money into the United States. He never wanted the tariffs to be on in the first place. Excuse my language, but he's just doing this to be a ball buster, to be honest. And that's who Trump is. I mean, he's a New York City real estate developer. I'm not sure if anybody in the chat has ever dealt with the New York City real estate developer. But that's how they are. Yeah, we'll throw 25% tariffs on you. They may go up, they may not. We'll see. We'll see what happens. You're going to have to do better on your end. You're going to have to hold up your side of the deal. So I think you're going to see a lot of that. And that's going to cause a lot of uncertainty, not only in the financial markets, but with world leaders, right? You could see the frustration today and yesterday on Justin Trudeau's face. There was some strong statements, crazy strong statements from China coming out. And I kind of posted this on my X account. If you guys want to connect with me over on X, oftentimes I'll post some of the interesting things I read throughout the day. But China literally came out and said that we are ready for any kind of war that the United States wants to initiate. And I think they were kind of being a little bit provocative, if you will, when they kind of use the term any type of war, right? Implying that, if there was ever a hot war, they'd be ready, which is just a provocative statement. This comes at a time, remember, we have to think about the incentivization structure here for the Chinese, because China just came out with another very strong statement in relation to how much they want their economy to grow. They are targeting about 5% GDP growth in China. And I think that's pretty steep. I think that's going to be very difficult for them to reach that level of growth. Okay, we've been talking about this topic almost to the point of ad nauseum on the stream. There's a lot of problems going on in China right now, right? Particularly as it relates to their real estate market. And the PBOC, which is the People's Bank of China, has really come out and said without saying that they're going to do anything and everything to support this market, right? Whether that be, interest-free loans to buy back stock. So it's really going to be a monetary, extravaganza over there in China. So it is in China, and President Trump knows this, right? So it is not in China's best interest to really escalate, I should say re-escalate, right? Because Trump is kind of initiating it. Re-escalate a big trade war with the United States. They don't want that, particularly at a time when they want to revitalize the economy and grow GDP at 5%. So a lot of things are happening. That's my take on the tariffs. There's just, you'll read one article, right, that says 25% tariffs across the board on Canada and Mexico. And then you'll see another news headline 2 seconds later, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick coming out and saying, you know what, maybe we'll take them off and we'll get a deal by tomorrow morning. So I think for the average person, including myself, just check in on the tariff news every 2 weeks. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Anyway, I totally forgot to do the audio and visual check, but hopefully you all can hear us and see us. And we'll see what happens. Let's see who we got in the chat. I see Fun Feeds is here. Joe Driver, what's going on? Dale is joining us. Crypto Meme says, Yo T, we have a Bitcoin reserve. Yes, a huge piece of news really coming off the wire maybe an hour ago. I don't know, maybe less. So for those of you who don't know, President Trump did sit down in the Oval Office and sign an executive order creating a Bitcoin strategic reserve. Now, I think this was a really, really good decision. Now, if you remember correctly, I believe this was last week. This is a pretty cool shot here of a Steinway Tower and the Plaza Hotel. But this is, last week Trump fired off that tweet saying he's going to support the creation of a crypto reserve with all the bunch of other cryptocurrencies, kind of wound up in a basket. And it was a little bit of a unclear tweet or post or whatever you want to call it, right? Because it left a few questions unanswered, or more than a few questions unanswered. Number one, is this going to be a hit to the U.S. taxpayer? Now, I agree with a lot of the critics. Taxpayer dollars should not be used to buy Bitcoin, right? Or one could say to speculate on Bitcoin, particularly or especially since that we were running such crazy deficits. Our national debt is ballooning into the $30+ trillion. So this new executive order provided more clarity, and essentially it is as follows. The Strategic Bitcoin Reserve really isn't anything new, right? It essentially states that all of the Bitcoin that the United States has in its possession right now, which they estimate to be about 200,000 Bitcoin, which, by the way, a quick side note, how do you not know how much Bitcoin the United States government has in possession? I think David Sachs came out and tweeted it might be around 200,000. With Bitcoin, it's not. It might be. It's, you look at the blockchain, you look at your wallet, and you tell us how much it is. So I think they should, not to be a critic, but I think they should have, got the exact number of how much Bitcoin we actually own before they fired off that executive order. Anyway, that's neither here nor there, but it is only going to be Bitcoin that the United States government has seized through, preventing some sort of nefarious activity, in which case this is seized Bitcoin, and essentially we promise not to sell it. We are just going to take custody of it, and it is going to be placed into a custodian account, and that will be named the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, in which case it will not be sold. Now, the U.S. government has seized an unbelievable amount of Bitcoin over the years. If you are, I would say, an original Bitcoiner that's kind of been around 2013, 2014, and 2015, you've been through the Mt. Gox hacks, you've been through it all, you've been through the ringer, and there was a very, very, a very, very famous investor that goes by the name of Tim Draper. I'm not sure if any of you have heard of him, but he's a really good guy. I've actually had the pleasure of meeting him before. It's just super, super smart. And Tim Draper acquired the vast majority of his stash, I should say, I guess you could call it a stash, of Bitcoin from buying it from the U.S. government in an auction, right? So the U.S. government has lost billions of dollars, or billions in potential capital gains, from selling off that Bitcoin. So I think it's a good idea. It costs the taxpayer nothing. And now that that clarity is set, that we're not going to be using taxpayer funds to speculate on cryptocurrencies, and we're just going to promise we're going to hold and take custody of the assets we already have, in addition to finding out other alternatives that will not cost taxpayers any dollar to acquire more. I think that is very, very good. Yeah, Alan's like billions and billions, insert the Trump hand thing for sure. Hey, John says, didn't you say it's unconfiscatable? So how's that work if the Fed seized it? Well, play that through. When you have your Bitcoin on an exchange, right, you don't hold your own private keys. And if you, let's say, for example, I could give a really good example with the actually the most recent and the largest Bitcoin hack that just happened, or I should say crypto exchange hack that just happened. That is an attack on an exchange. So let's say if I, buy Bitcoin, I buy one full Bitcoin and I leave it at Coinbase, right? I technically don't own that. Coinbase holds the private keys. But if you take self-custody, which would be like an OG paper wallet, for example, or let's say like a hardware wallet, then it's called self-custody. So there's a difference. So kind of have that buyer beware out there. If you are buying Bitcoin on an exchange and you choose to leave it on the exchange, just know that you're taking that counterparty risk, right? If the exchange gets hacked or whatever, there's the risk. But if you take self-custody and you have your private keys, well, different story. You actually have the ownership, which John brings up a really good point, because in my view, and kind of how I first got into Bitcoin is exactly that, is the value proposition that I saw with Bitcoin is that it is unconfiscatable property that lives outside the traditional financial realm. And you could send large amounts, large quantities around the world for pretty much zero cost. It's not technically zero cost, but pretty much. So I think it deserves a slot in the portfolio. Mitch, is the bigger story is that this commits the U.S. to a crypto regulatory framework. That's a very, very good point, and I would agree. One of the main things that's really held the crypto and Bitcoin space back over the years has, not to blame one guy, but I'll just say the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission overall. And my big problem with the Securities and Exchange Commission is that they're quite reactionary in nature. Right? They're supposed to protect consumers, protect investors, but by not having a clear-cut regulatory framework around it, that is what, in my opinion, has actually exacerbated all of these scams in the cryptocurrency space, right? Because it's a Wild West. But if you take the space seriously and you design a regulatory framework around said industry, well, then now you have a clear set of rules and parameters in which to operate, which, by the way, attracts capital creation to this country. Right, over the last 4+ years, a lot of that capital creation in the crypto and Bitcoin space has gone overseas, particularly the Middle East. And I think with an administration that is more receptive to and accommodating to that space, we're probably going to get clear-cut regulatory framework, in which case Wall Street, traditional Wall Street, will develop entire industries and ecosystems around Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, because Wall Street wants to make money, whether they believe in it or not. And this is a very important point that I think we should discuss. Over the years, if you've turned on the news, right, you hear Jamie Dimon coming out saying it's all a fraud, it's monopoly money, it's nonsense, right? You saw Larry Fink in the early days, I would say 2016, 2017, coming out and saying Bitcoin and crypto is nonsense, right? But now that he has an approved product to sell to clients, he's done a complete 180 on the subject. So following the incentivization structure, following the principle of follow the money, well, if BlackRock and Larry Fink have a Bitcoin ETF, they're going to try to offer that to clients. They're going to be very bullish on it. They're going to talk favorably about it so they can grow their AUM, or assets under management, which then leads to more fee income. Hey, Tammy, Lucy, what's going on? Thanks for joining us. I see Jonathan from Florida is here. Cheers. Joe says money and people requires regulations. Definitely a no-brainer. Ron says Central Park is to the right. Yeah, you're correct. This is Central Park. We are now overlooking 1 Central Park West and 15 Central Park West. This is Central Park South here. Hey, Clarence Jackson says, Tom, I attended a summit with David Rubenstein. Wow, Steve Mnuchin. Very cool. It was a great event. Very, very cool. Yeah, David Rubenstein has a really, I would say, educational and very informative podcast. If anybody's big into private equity, I would highly advise to listen or download the David Rubenstein podcast. It's very good. Very, very good. What's up, TD? Good to see you. Hey, Ukrainian Royal, thank you so much for your generous $2 donation. Appreciate your support. This has been a while. Hope you've been doing well. Yeah, thank you very, very much. Hopefully you're doing well. It's glad to have you back. Always a pleasure. Now, I do have a question just for the chat here. And there's no right or wrong answer, and I respect all answers. Do we think okay, it's a yes or no answer. Do you think that the executive order that was signed tonight to create a Bitcoin strategic reserve, is that a good idea or a bad idea? So good or bad, what do you think? And again, there's no right or wrong answer here. This is just opinionated statements. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. I'm just kind of trying to gauge the sentiment around the space. So Ron says it's a bad idea. DC322 says bad. June says bad. John says bad. Alan says it's a good idea. John says good. Paul K says no idea. Jackass says it's weird because of how they implemented it, seized coin only. I think that's actually the appropriate way to do it. Ricky says bad. So we're pretty much split 50-50 in the chat, honestly. John Kelly, I knew you would say it's a good idea. Kevin says not good, not bad. Jeff says very bad. Undecided. Leslie says great idea. Peter says the executive order is not permanent. John says gold should be gold. New England Crypto says it's obviously the right call. Now, I think, obviously you know what my opinion is, but the reason why I asked that is to really just gauge the overall receptiveness and sentiment around this new asset. Now, hey, maybe the people that say it's a bad idea are right. I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. I think it's a very good idea. However, with the strict parameters that we don't use taxpayer funds to go acquire Bitcoin, which they've specifically stated that they will not do. Not to sound super repetitive, but I think it's a good idea, judging based upon past history, not to auction off the Bitcoin we have, because if you look at the calculation of the, I would say, capital gains that we missed out on, I think it's over like $17 billion. So might as well keep our assets and not fire sale them. All right, guys, check this out. This is the beautiful Alwyn Court on West 58th Street and 7th. This is one of my favorite buildings in New York, architecturally speaking. And you have a really cool contrast in the back with 157, as well as the Steinway Tower, which is 111 West 57th Street. It's a really cool picture here. Kind of reminds me of some of the scenes out of like Gotham. Top Cat says gold has been tested before through times of war. Hopefully crypto would be equally resilient. You're right. And see, that's that's another really good point and a really good topic of discussion. There's many people out there that are either what I would call like Bitcoin only people, right? You talk to these people, you're like, gold's terrible, it's outdated, it sucks, I would never buy gold, I'm just all in Bitcoin. And then on the opposite side of the spectrum, I'll use Peter Schiff as an example, right? Says that gold is the only store of value, gold is the only thing that's any good to have, right? He's even been talking down on US stocks since the bottom of the great financial crisis, right? He's pretty much told you not to buy Apple, not to buy Microsoft, not to buy Alphabet, right? Not to buy Nvidia, which are all these stocks that have gone up thousands of percent over the last 10 years. And he's like, Bitcoin's a fraud and it's only gold. But as looking at it objectively, right, as a capital allocator, and if you take emotion out of it, totally remove your own personal biases and emotion, and also remove the egos, because I think a lot of the conversation of Bitcoin and gold debate is a lot of ego. They're both great assets to own, and I've owned both. And by the way, if you've owned both, you've done really, really well. Because if you haven't noticed, gold is currently on its way to $3,000 an ounce, trading over $2,900 an ounce. It's been performing absolutely fantastic as it's broken out of that cup and handle. Gold's a great asset to have. But that doesn't mean you have to pick either or. Pick and, right? It's like the perfect hedge. And kind of Paul Tudor Jones has said this as well. So oftentimes, you could choose both. Sunnyside says, hey Tom, gold is truly a precious metal. Its utility is unquestioned. Absolutely. Absolutely. Brad's Brain says, gold is a concept I just refuse to understand, and I will never own a shiny. Useless rock, says Brad. Hilarious. Good to see you, Brad. I'm sure you've now heard of the news of the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve. Let me read some more of the chats here. I apologize. Tortellini says, yo, Tom, who made Bitcoin? For all you know, I did. I could be Satoshi Nakamoto. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm not. Shane71. All right, let me catch up on some of these comments. The wind is absolutely piercing right now, so I'll kind of stand over to the side. Shane71 says, do you think Trump is okay with the tariffs being instated now, that his negotiating tactics didn't go as planned? Are the effects of the tariffs? Yeah, so I wouldn't say they didn't go as planned. I would say they're probably going exactly as planned. And we briefly touched on this at the very beginning of the broadcast. But one of the things that I never bought Donald Trump's campaign promise. I never believed it. And here was the campaign promise. And then we'll kind of move off the topic of politics, because I know some people kind of, get wet behind the ears when I talk about politics. Trump was claiming that he's just going to throw tariffs on everybody, and we're going to bring in billions and billions and billions and billions. We're going to bring in so many billions, you're going to get tired of winning, right? Trump never wanted to put tariffs on anybody. If you haven't noticed, the tariffs go on, and then they come off, people freak out, Canada freaks out, Mexico freaks out. It's all to create an environment of uncertainty and fear and panic, so that these countries can come back to the negotiating table and negotiate favorable terms, or make good on the promises they've already kept. So if you haven't noticed, right, once the tariffs went on, then you had Secretary Lutnick come out and say, well, you know what, I think we're actually pretty close to a deal, and maybe the tariffs will come off. And then Trump said, we're going to put 25% tariffs on China. Maybe they'll go up. Maybe they won't. I don't know. Maybe I'll take them off. I don't know. That's who he is. He's a New York City real estate developer, and he's a ball buster, right, for lack of better words. So, but the point is, he's using these tariffs as a negotiating tactic for more favorable terms, not to throw tariffs on, leave them on in perpetuity to take in billions and billions of dollars. That was just nonsense from the beginning. Hey, Jonathan from Florida, thank you so much for your $20 donation. Says, hey Tom, my mother Ruby is watching tonight. Very good to see you. Well, God bless your mother. Absolutely fantastic. Hopefully she's in a much warmer place than I am as the wind is whipping. If you look at the traffic lights here, I mean, traffic lights are like, what, 200 pounds? And the wind is blowing them all over the place, so it's freezing. It's cutting wind. This is looking up towards Columbus Circle. But thank you very much for your support. All right, let's try to maybe head down the other way. Oh, there's another thing I wanted to mention, which I think is really important in, I don't want to say the cover story. I think it was in the New America section of Investors Business Daily. And I think this is so critical. If there's one thing that I've said this whole entire stream, this is probably the most critical. So forget all the Bitcoin nonsense, forget all that stuff. This is very critical. And it's all about the future and trend following. Okay, so according to Fidelity, this was a report by Fidelity that came out. And over the next 2 decades, okay, there's set to be about $84 trillion worth of wealth passed down to the millennial and Gen Z generation. It's going to be the largest wealth transfer event in human history. Okay, 2 decades, not too far away. Now, if you look to Robinhood's most recent earnings report, there are some very, very telling clues there. Okay? Now, here's what I'm getting at. If you look at the investment philosophies, styles, and I would say hierarchy of importance to millennials and Gen Zs, it is very, very different to that of, let's just say, the older generations, right? Who would, buy bonds, buy real estate, and the like. So when this money is going to be passed down, and maybe, a portion of that will go into creation of a family office, trusts, and the like, you don't think equity allocation is going to be much, much higher? You don't think allocation to the cryptocurrency space and Bitcoin is going to be much, much higher? I think capital allocation over the next 24 years is going to change in an unbelievable way. So always look to the future, okay? The future of asset allocation is going to be with the decisions of the millennials and the Gen Z, who are people that are like my age and a little bit older, right? So if you look at what they're doing now, what are they into? Look at the most recent college graduates, right? Think about what students right now are going to college to study. What jobs are they looking to get, right? Overwhelmingly, they're interested in AI, they're interested in Web3, they're interested in big tech, and really just the digitization of everything. So if you don't think that the Bitcoin and crypto space is going to be a $50 trillion opportunity, it's if we wake up in 24 years, if we could teleport to 24 years time, just like how you have articles in Barron's every day, deconstructing an 80-20 portfolio, 80% stocks, 20% bonds, talking about this high yield bond fund and this, there's going to be entire sections of, which crypto ETF should we rotate into? Which investment bank can you go to that'll offer you the most favorable terms on lending against and borrowing against your Bitcoin and using it as collateral? Okay, these systems are being put in place right now. You look at some of the companies like Coinbase, like Gemini, and the like. So look to the future, because those are your next generation of capital allocators. And I think if you don't offer those types of products and services to your clients, they're going to move elsewhere. And with Robinhood's most recent earnings report, they are taking in an unbelievable amount of capital, okay, whether you like it or not. And I've been very critical of that company. Okay, if you've been watching the stream long enough, I've been very, very critical, but I've kind of changed my tune because the market has kind of proved me wrong. The market is telling us that this is where the future is going. The future of commerce is digital. The future of property is digital. You're going to be able to buy and sell real estate on the blockchain. It's going to be the tokenization of everything. So there was a really good article in Investors Business Daily just about that, about the $84 trillion worth of wealth that is set to be inherited to Gen Z and millennials in the next 2 decades. Oh, the Mighty Bull, thank you so much for your very generous donation. I appreciate you. Thank you for the support, and I hope you're well. Jeff W277 says Tom has been a faithful Interactive Brokers supporter. That is true. TB says you don't skate to where the puck is, you skate to where the puck is going to be. That's a perfect analogy of what we're talking about. The perfect analogy. And, I got this, it's going to sound kind of funny and kind of crazy, but I was eating at this Chinese restaurant. I got this fortune cookie. And I think it said something along the lines of, what may feel extremely uncertain now will be like a dead giveaway in the future, in hindsight. And I feel like that is kind of what we're looking at, right? It's a dead giveaway. If you look at what all the kids are doing, it's kind of like what Peter Lynch used to say, right? Peter Lynch was the former mutual fund manager of the Fidelity Magellan Fund. Essentially, a big part of his investment thesis was just pay attention to things. Like, look at what the kids are doing. What are the new generation, what are they interested in? What are they building? Right? Overwhelmingly, what are the new startups doing? And it seems to be all swaying that way. Mitch says, watching Stripe. What's up, Mitch? Oh, right here on the corner of 54th and Broadway, this used to be the headquarters of Bad Boy Entertainment, Sean Combs, P. Diddy's company. And you know what's strange? Did anybody see the interview between Tucker Carlson and Sam Bankman-Fried? Now, I couldn't bring myself to watch it. I just can't watch that. But I saw some clips, and I didn't really know how to feel about it. So maybe if any of you watched it, let me know if it was good or not. But how the hell is Sam Bankman-Fried able to do an interview, a podcast in prison? How does that work? Anyway, a little bit off topic, but I'm trying to get off of Broadway to try to get out of the wind. Yeah, Sunnyside says money talks. It's true. Alan says watch the whole thing. Give us the, one paragraph elevator pitch. Hey, John's thoughts on Walgreens going private. Yeah, Walgreens, I think the deal penciled today. So Walgreens used to trade under the ticker symbol WBA, and that was a real horror show of the stock. I posted about this a little bit on X over the past week. But the stock topped, I think, in 2015, and now is like a single-digit, pretty much penny stock. And there was a few things that went wrong at Walgreens. Obviously, the Amazon effect is a major one. And they also didn't do a very good job with in-store experience and a few key things that with their pharmacy that CVS did really well and that they didn't do well at all. So a private equity firm is going to buy the company. They're probably going to sell it off and get it very, very lean and mean, which unfortunately means there's probably going to be a culling, and there's probably going to be a lot less Walgreens physical stores available for people to shop, particularly in New York City, as many of them are getting looted to death, or it's impossible to shop. Now it's honestly just impossible to shop. Now maybe this is just me being a little bit of a diva, and I could take that criticism, but I can't do business when I walk into a drugstore and I'm trying to get toothpaste, a toothbrush, shampoo, soap, and I have to, play leapfrog around the store waiting for a little guy to come over to unlock a plexiglass thing. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do commerce there. I'm just going to go home and order everything online and have somebody drop it off at my doorstep. So, it just doesn't work, right? A lot of the things that we've been talking about over the course of the last, year is, following the trend. And the trend, what Americans consumers want is hyper convenience. People are willing to pay, $10 to $20 worth of delivery fees, to order Uber Eats. Okay, people are as impatient as ever. So if you think a sustainable business model is walking into a Walgreens and waiting for a little employee to come over and unlock, the bar of Dove soap behind the plexiglass, it's just not a sustainable business practice, okay? When you can literally talk to your phone and say, hey Siri, order me, 3 packs of Dove soap, and it'll be delivered to you within 12 hours, depending on where you are in the United States. So hyper convenience, we've always been saying, bet on companies that sell convenience. And the market has essentially shown us that people are willing to pay a premium for hyper convenience. We just are. Think about all the streaming platforms. People, you don't have to wait until 8 p.m. every other week for your favorite TV show to come out. I remember as a kid, the new episode of America's Got Talent or American Idol would be on, Saturday at 8 o'clock, and then you'd have to wait to the next Saturday for the new episode. Now, on Netflix, you just binge 24 hours. You never even have to get out of your bed, and the whole thing is you're able to binge it if you sign up for the subscription, right? So price doesn't matter. American consumers are willing to pay any price. So price does not matter, okay? What matters is the hyper convenience, and I think that was one of the main reasons why Walgreens was pretty much on the verge of bankruptcy until they went private here. Look at that. Anyway, if you guys are enjoying the live stream tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video and click the subscribe button if you're new. We do these streams pretty much every day starting at 8:45. I see Patrice 2020 here. Welcome. Hey, Professor Dario, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it. Marks is the lady at Walmart, said that half the goods will be behind glass by Christmas. Well, Walmart is a different story because Walmart has done an unbelievable job of their e-commerce business. Walmart has done an unbelievable job of e-commerce business, cutting down on retail slippage. And in addition to that, it has really good order online and curbside pickup. And their produce is very, very good. So again, an experience, good customer experience. Now, briefly, we spoke about McDonald's and a big corporate initiative push for them now is to double down on automating a lot of their stores to improve that customer experience. The article was very good. It was in the Journal today. And essentially, the McDonald's CEO said, our restaurants have become hectic. At any one time in a McDonald's restaurant, you could have the following things going on. Number one, you could have people ordering, in person at the cashier. Number two, you could have people ordering at the little kiosk. This is the 53rd restaurant, by the way, very cool. Number three, you could have, people coming in to pick up DoorDash, Uber Eats. Number four, you could have people doing the curbside pickup. So it's gotten very hectic and very cluttered, which has led to an increase and an uptick in orders being wrong, right? Getting customers' orders wrong. So they're going to expand their partnership with Google to bring edge computing and automation to the McDonald's physical restaurant locations as a way to cut down on really essentially that waste, right? Because if you make somebody's order wrong, well, you got to remake the order, you got to throw out that food. So they're going to use a lot of AI for drive-through. They're going to use a lot of sensors in the kitchen to triple check, almost kind of like the facial recognition software that a lot of these asset protection companies use to cut down on shoplifting. They're going to use that same technology to make sure that the order is right before it goes out the door. It's pretty interesting stuff. So if you think that McDonald's is doing that across their 45,000 locations, you could expect to see the continuation of hyper-digitization and automation across all QSR restaurants, right? We spoke about Brian Niccol. What about Chipotle? Obviously, former CEO of Chipotle, Brian Niccol, is now with Starbucks. You are going to see a completely streamlined Starbucks experience with him at the helm. Okay, there's going to be some drastic changes there. And I think he's going to totally turn around that stock. So just think of all the major QSR companies, right? Chipotle, Sweetgreen already has ghost kitchens. Cava. I think as you look to the future, as it's already been, you're going to see more and more automation of very mundane processes, which is going to lead to hyper efficiency and really exploding profit margins, whether you like it or not. Because think about this. If you can have a fully autonomous McDonald's location or a fully autonomous Cava location or Chipotle, and let's say you could staff the store with, 20 people that are working in the entire store, you can have that store operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because you only need a handful of people working there if the robots are doing everything, right? You just need to maybe, refill the food, take inventory, right? Be there just to hand the food to the customers. So you may see hours of operation expanded across the suite of QSR companies, and profit margins explode. So something to think about. We're now on 5th Avenue. Hey, Connie, good to see you. Cheers. MD, always a pleasure. Hopefully you're well. Madison 32 is joining us. Mark's nice job with your walk earlier in the financial district. Yeah, it was kind of nice, right? I mean, we haven't been down to FiDi in a really, really long time. And I like the financial district. And now that the weather is going to be a bit nicer, maybe we'll start to get down there a bit more. I also filmed, which I think you guys are really, really going to like this. So I filmed a video of the inside of the Tin Building, which you guys are going to love that. So the Tin Building by Jean-Georges. Tortellini says, but who's going to buy food if nobody has a job, Tom? Who's not going to have a job? What do you mean nobody has a job? Hey, Cosmo Scary, good to see you. Cheers. Now, are you suggesting that since I said there's going to be more automation, more robotics, that robots are going to replace humans and nobody's going to have a job? Well, I would just tell you to revert to historical trends. Right? Think about the internet. You know, before the internet, I mean, people had jobs. After the internet, people have jobs. This guy's got a job too. He's holding up a little sign. There we go. With AI and with automation, it is just going to get rid of the very mundane and really, I would say, mentally taxing and physically taxing jobs. For example, Amazon is investing billions of dollars to make fully autonomous warehouses. Okay, I'm not sure if anybody's ever done warehouse work before, lifting boxes and, you know, heavy manual labor. That is not what I would consider an ideal job. So for every job that AI, robotics, and automation destroy, if you, again, go back to the internet, it generally tends to create 5 additional jobs, which so far throughout history gives the employees a significant pay bump. However, it does come with a completely different set of skills that you would need to do that job. Okay, so when people talk about, oh my God, AI and robotics is gonna, you know, put everybody out of work, we don't even know the type of jobs that AI and robotics are going to create. Okay, we don't even know. Like, you know, people make the argument to me, they say, okay, name all these jobs. Fuck, I don't know all these jobs. I have no idea. I mean, if somebody said when the internet was just getting started in the 90s, right? Okay, name all these jobs that the internet is going to create. You couldn't name them because they didn't exist, right? I mean, think about, you know, the whole booming industry of being a software salesperson, right? Or a software engineer, or a Salesforce administrator at your company, right? There's so many different jobs and wealth that has been created because of the internet and software that you couldn't even have imagined or dreamt of those jobs, right? It's going to be the same exact thing here. That's how it is always meant, right? At one point, you know, you would go into your little town and you would, you know, go to your blacksmith. Does anybody have a personal blacksmith right now? No, of course not, right? So jobs that are destroyed by technology and automation go on to in turn create 5 new jobs in the new age that have better pay, better benefits, and create a better quality of life. That's just a fact, right? That is just a fact. Think about all of the coal mining jobs that were very, very lucrative coal mining jobs back in the day. the industry has shrunk pretty much to zero. Not zero, but pretty much to zero. You know, being a coal miner was a really good job. It paid well, but you also got black lung. So do you want black lung, or do you want automation and technology? So lung cancer or automation and technology, right? Let's see if this ice skating rink still has people here. I think they may be filming a movie. Joel PMs is when the internet was just getting started in the 90s. You could still make, a fortune selling typewriters and copier machines. I think that might have been Howard Schultz's first real job. I think Howard Schultz used to sell copiers. Hey, K4, what's up? Yeah, I think Taiwan Semiconductor is going to build new factories near you, right? Sunshine after rain. Good to see you, Cosmo Scary. Welcome. Melissa 2087. Wow, 30 Rock looks great tonight. So this building right here above the Today Show, this is going to be some very fancy hotel. I always forget the name of it, but it's some hotel chain in Colorado. It's like a very, I don't know, like upscale, ritzy hotel for like the skiing community, I think. And I think it's going to come right here in this building. Obviously, because they had such high vacancy rates for the offices. It's a good idea to convert it into hotels. Oh, Aspen Hospitality. Is that what's going to be there, Cosmo? Very cool. Now, who remembers when this FAO Schwartz used to be up by the Apple Store in the GM building? I think that used to be the original location. Used to be in the GM building. Yeah, it looks completely empty. I think they're making it into the hotel now. John says it's been totally empty for at least 3 years now. It's literally across from my office. Wow, nice. This is a great place to work. You're close to my spot, Del Frisco's. John says no tourist hell. Yeah, definitely a lot of tourists, but I've kind of learned to love the tourists and embrace the tourists, because at the end of the day, New York City really, really needs tourism to boom. So I get it. And the tourists really make the city feel alive. Really, really does. But it was kind of funny being on the other side of it. I mean, hell, I look like a tourist every night walking around with this camera. But when I was in Korea, I was like really feeling like a tourist, obviously, because I was. But, taking photos of everything, even of just like the most basic thing. So I get it. I mean, if you're not from New York, right? If you're from some very, very small town, remote somewhere, and then you get dropped off in this place, yeah, it's pretty crazy, right? It's a pretty crazy place. So I get it. It's a very fun place too. I don't think I would want to work anywhere else full time, right? I think I would get a little bit bored. I think New York City and Miami are really the only two places, but I couldn't imagine just getting in my car, driving to an office really in the middle of nowhere. On my lunch break, I have to get in my car and drive to like a fast food joint. I don't know if I could do that. I need to be able to walk around. It's a real blessing that I think many New Yorkers take for granted. If you work let's say in this building, right? You got an hour lunch break. You take the elevator down. Maybe you walk around Rockefeller Center. It's really fun. It's really, really fun. Rick says you wouldn't live in San Francisco. Maybe I would live in San Francisco. I've never been to San Francisco, but there's a big tech industry there. Weather's good. If I could ever make my way there, I would say San Diego would probably be a great place. Now, don't get me wrong, I like some of the suburbs, right? I think suburbs are kind of good for living. Cities are good for working. But I kind of like the suburbs in Miami because, in 20 minutes, you could be downtown Miami, Brickell, Wynwood, but then in 20 minutes, you can just be in like a cul-de-sac. And then in 5 minutes, you could be right on the beach. Like, I've been spending a lot more time in upstate New York, like Rye. Not sure if anybody's familiar with Rye, New York, but I've been spending a lot of time up there. It's an unbelievably, let's just say a very amazing place, like extremely wealthy place. Like, the homes up there are ridiculous, but there's like no infrastructure up there. I mean, the homes are beautiful. You got to have a car. But I got to be able to walk somewhere, Beautiful up there, but oh, by the way, do we have anybody from California in the chat? I think maybe TD, Teresa Diaz, obviously is our California expert. Does anybody have any live, on-the-ground updates of what's going on in the Palisades in terms of, is that being rebuilt? Are people rebuilding there? Because, I mean, that was a very, very beautiful, beautiful place, right? Just looking at the photos, and I've watched, like, YouTube walking tours of, that neighborhood. I wonder what's going to happen there. I saw that the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, created his own podcast. I actually watched an episode of it. I was pretty impressed. Alex411 says, I'm all suburbs. I could be middle class, so maybe I can afford a higher middle class home. That's great. Yeah, I mean, whatever works for you. I mean, my place in Miami is in a suburb, not, I wouldn't say it's extremely walkable there. MD says, Tom, they are still working through the cleanups. My dog Indy says, yes, nothing is going on just yet. Travel BC says, I haven't heard anything. MD says they are also working through the legalities and the insurance. Now, my biggest fear, if you want to talk about like a tail risk, to real estate market, particularly in New York City, not New York City. That's the thing that sucks about New York when it gets very, very cold. A lot of the ATM banks will just turn into like a big fentanyl den. But, in some areas of Florida, in California, I'm not even sure if people are going to be able to even have the opportunity to get homeowners insurance. With more of these disasters happening, wildfires, hurricanes, the insurance that you will be able to get, it's going to be so crazy expensive. My property insurance is, I think, almost $5,000 a year, maybe like $4,500, $4,800, I forget. It's crazy. Wow, MD says we are seeing homes fall out of escrow due to coverage issues. Mark says they could have done a much better job with the fire prevention and having a larger fire department force in LA. Yeah, that whole thing was botched and bungled. Noodle says my property taxes on Long Island are $12,000. Yeah, it's not really the property taxes that I'm worried about. It's the insurance crisis. More and more people now are choosing to self-insure, which really just means you don't have insurance, right? It's kind of a nice way of saying you don't have any insurance. But yeah, it kind of flips the deals upside down, right? If you're doing the math on, is it more advantageous for me to buy something, or is it more advantageous for me to rent? A lot of times right now, these deals just don't pencil, because if you factor in your insurance, if you factor in the property taxes, and if you give maybe like a 2-3% buffer for, miscellaneous things that happen, you gotta, there's a crack in the kitchen counter, the toilet overflows, you have plumbing problems, the HVAC goes out, right? All these things happen as a homeowner. So when, I think it's quite obvious, but, if you are a first-time home buyer, you're buying your first deal, you should have a buffer when you're doing your underwriting for all of these miscellaneous things. And you should set aside a portion of your cash flows a year to a separate account to account for like a risk event, right? If you got to get a new hot water heater, maybe that just goes kaput. Maybe you got to get a new appliance or something. Perhaps, you got to have maybe you have to use your insurance. You got to pay the big deductible. I don't know. But after you factor all that in, it's probably just better for you to rent. Anyway. Hey, 10 Red Bluff, what's going on? So there's some alert that will let us know when you go live. I think what you have to do now on YouTube is you have to click the bell notification button. So I don't think it's good enough to subscribe anymore, because YouTube will sometimes let you know when I go live. But if you do want to be notified every time we do the live broadcast, I believe you have to click the notification bell icon. I think. I want to be a GMO. Is renter's insurance still available? So this new building that I moved in did require renter's insurance, but it was so cheap. I think I paid like $120 for the entire year. They gave you like a $20 discount if you paid the whole thing up front. But most new buildings, if you're renting in like a big, like high-rise building in New York, most do require renter's insurance. But I think renter's insurance is a whole just bullshit thing, but that's neither here nor there. Kaylee says, it's easier to get an apartment in Florida or New York City. I think it just really all depends on the building. Now, if you're thinking about renting something in Manhattan, the status quo, so to speak. Oh, this is Salesforce Tower, Mr. Benioff. The status quo here is that you would need to make 40 times your monthly rent. That's the calculation. So I've worked with landlords that will not even look at somebody with less than like a 750 credit score. So it's usually 750 credit score, and you need to make 40 times the monthly rent. So you could just do that math. So let's say your rent is, $5,000 a month. You would just go 5,000 times 40, and that is your annual income that you would need in order to qualify for that apartment. Now, if you don't make that much, that doesn't mean you can't get into the apartment. That just means you would need a guarantor. And that guarantor would need to make, look at all this trash flying around. See, when it's really windy in New York, we have these trash tornadoes. And I'm caught in one right now. It's pretty interesting, but also a little gross at the same time. Anyway, you would need a guarantor, which would need to make about 80 times your monthly rent. So oftentimes, if you're a new college graduate, you're just moving to the city, many people opt to live with roommates, right? Because if you rent a 3-bedroom apartment and each individual person rents a room, well, that makes it a little bit more affordable, and it will bring down the amount that you would need to make per year. Now, that is for like some of the big buildings. If you go to like a pre-war building, maybe it's like a small mom and pop landlord, and you have someone to lobby for you, they'll more than likely accept your application. What's unfortunate, and this is kind of like a taboo topic, but I'm actually technically not supposed to talk about it, but whatever. I believe in free speech. New York has really kind of effed up the market for renters, and they've passed legislation that makes it harder actually for people to have a chance to rent an apartment because the renter laws are so horrible and horrendous. Now, if God forbid, if you get somebody who doesn't want to move out of the apartment, if it's a squatter, you can evict them. Okay, that's kind of, when people say, oh, in New York City you can't evict the tenant, that's technically not true, but it also is true. You can go through the eviction process, but it is such a laborious drag to go through that process. And there's so many different stipulations. Like, let's say if it's raining that day, they could get a court order, go to the judge and say, oops, it's raining, it's a bad weather situation, you can't evict me today. And the courts are so backed up, and it just takes so long. So knowing that, if you are a small mom and pop landlord in New York City and you own, 20 to 50 doors, you are less inclined to take a risk on somebody who maybe has a little bit of a lower credit score, and maybe they make about $10,000 to $20,000 less of the income requirement, right? Because you're just too much of a high risk. Because if they ever get a squatter, they're never going to be able to get them out. So some landlords that I know just go completely scorched earth and say, look, I'd rather have my place sit vacant. Find me somebody with an 800 credit score that makes 40 times the rent. I don't even want a guarantor. That's kind of what they tell us. Even though we legally have to present all offers, but some of them are just like, I can't take it anymore. If you don't make 40 times the rent, and if you don't have an 800 credit score on the dot, pound sand, take a hike. Essentially, that does happen in some cases. So, but if you have a law or a favorable system where if you have somebody who's not paying and that you can evict them quickly, well, that builds confidence in the landlord to say, okay, I'll take a shot on this guy or girl because I know if they mess up, I could just easily get him out of the property. So it's created a very tough situation in New York. And that's just from my personal experience. And this is all price points, by the way, because last year we placed a person in a $45,000 a month rental. On month 5, they stopped paying, and they're still in our client's apartment. So this is not a socioeconomic problem. There are professional tenants, so to speak, at all price points. So just a little bit of and some of them they make it very, very, let's just say they're very good at it. All their documents look legit. They go through the background checks, the employment verification, everything is to a T. But some people are just so good at it, so good at scheming. Oh, is this an adobo? It doesn't look like I think this is like a competitor to Chipotle, and most of them are in New Jersey. I don't know if it looks slightly different, the branding, though. Andy says 40x is 30% of income. That's a reasonable max amount to pay for housing. And most people, by the standard, I think it makes up like 50% of their overall household income goes to rent in New York, which is crazy, but it's true. Here's Kava. Hey, Cosmos, this random question. Have you looked into purchasing property in Korea? Yes. Absolutely. I'll probably make a purchase in Korea this year or next year, maybe sooner than later. Stay tuned. Hold on, I just got hit with a piece of garbage. So this plastic bag actually went down my jacket. I got to get it out. Hold on. All right, we're back. So we're now on 37th Street and Broadway here. Mark says, what's the place like at 2 to 3 a.m.? Pretty much exactly like this, but with pretty much nobody outside. So very similar. I mean, not really many people out at 2 or 3 o'clock. Seems usually pretty empty. Although very seldom am I outside at 2 or 3 o'clock. Sometimes I am, but not a lot. Anyway, if you guys are just joining us, we pretty much had a pretty lengthy discussion about the new creation of the strategic Bitcoin reserve that was announced today. Just a quick synopsis on it. Currently, the U.S. government holds roughly 200,000 Bitcoin, mainly from seizures and things like that. Those are the Bitcoin that are going to be inside the strategic reserve, which is pretty much no change from what we're doing now, with the stipulation that we're not going to sell it, which is good, because we've lost out on, I think, a little over $17 billion in gains from the Bitcoin we have already sold. We talked about Tim Draper, who is a very, very renowned investor. The vast majority of his Bitcoin position was bought from the U.S. Treasury. That's kind of how he got involved, and I think he is on the Bitcoin billionaires list. So I think it's a very good idea. I think it was good for the administration to come out and make some clarity, saying that they're not going to use taxpayer funds to acquire more Bitcoin. The only way that they will acquire more Bitcoin is if they can find a means to do it where it doesn't impact the taxpayer. As many of you pointed out in the chat, that's really not the biggest piece of news. It's the implications that this is going to be a very, very friendly Bitcoin and crypto administration, which will lead to a regulatory framework for the industry, breeding capital creation and the like. You've also had, and we've mentioned this many times, but some of the biggest operators and some of the smartest minds on the traditional Wall Street. I would say there probably is no better person than Ken Griffin.
Can I be on your YouTube?
Oh, sorry.
Can I be on your YouTube?
Oh, sorry.
Please,
Okay.
please, I need fame so bad.
That's okay.
Please,
No, please.
please, 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 please. What's in your briefcase?
Stop.
Please, please.
YouTuber?
Please.
It's okay. It's okay.
He's probably like walking around the city or something.
Like high tree, you could use this to nourish yourself in extreme situations.
What I was going to say is, if you think about the best minds on Wall Street, probably particularly the most successful minds on Wall Street, like Ken Griffin of Citadel Securities, they have formally announced that they will be entering the market-making business for crypto and Bitcoin. And I've told the story many times about the Enron situation. When Enron first went under, Citadel was the first firm to really make it a company-wide action to interview every single person who worked at the company or the trading desk of Enron. Not necessarily to interview them, to hire them, but to reverse engineer exactly what Enron did so they don't make those mistakes as they build out, their energy trading business. So the amount of due diligence that firms like Citadel undertakes before they make a decision is extensive. So for them to formally announce that they will be entering the market-making business is huge. It's unbelievable. So I guess we could just use the follow the money analogy, coupled with all the new regulatory framework that's coming down the pike. The next decade is going to be tremendous. I think the whole industry in maybe a decade's time is probably going to be a $50 trillion opportunity. Anyway, sorry about that disturbance there. I think there's these, that is one of the things I don't like about streaming in general. Now, the lion's share of it, the streaming business, particularly on other platforms like Twitch and Kick, it's really utter, degeneracy, and it's just really just, that's really the best word to describe it, is just sheer degeneracy, instigating people, streaming, just horseshit, degenerate nonsense, intimidating people, making fun of people, just like the most cringe nonsense. So I think that was a group of those fellows. I think they're called the IP2, which are just the bottom of the barrel group of deplorables ever. Anyway, let's make one quick lap around Korea Way. We'll actually go down to 31st Street. Now, this building is the brand new, well, it's actually not really brand new anymore. I think this place opened about, maybe 1.5 to 2 years ago. But this is the new Ritz-Carlton Nomad, which is pretty nice. What's up, Dutch Maz? Yeah, it's just sickos, man. Terrible, terrible people. In any event, I think there was a SpaceX launch tonight. I didn't get to watch, but I think it blew up, the Starship. Alex411 says it didn't go well. Yeah, what happened? I think you could see the explosion from Miami. I think it blew up, right? Damn, I want to see that. It is crazy watching those launches, though. I still don't understand how they're able to launch these rockets into space and then have the boosters come down and land on a little launch pad in between like these two little chopstick platforms. It's kind of unbelievable innovation. Dalt says you saw it IRL. No way. Did you get any video of that? Damn, I kind of wish I was in Miami streaming it. I mean, you could definitely see it from the sky. I saw like a 2-second clip, but then I had to start this stream. I wonder what the dollar denomination is on a exploded Starship. It must be in the billions, right? Oh, Hang with Mark Mom says, yeah, it exploded. You could see it in Southwest Florida. I only saw the light. I wonder what happened. Tap Out says, how do you feel about Lucid? I like Lucid. I've always been a big advocate for EVs. That is the future. I know that a lot of people here don't like Elon Musk, which is fine. But I think we have to credit Elon with forcing the U.S. automotive industry to pivot and shift to electric vehicles, or just like a hybrid model. Because if you think about it, Tesla really was the first mover advantage that was popular, that kind of forced the industry to at least convert or attempt to. And that's been really hard on the automotive industry because it is not profitable. If anything, it's quite the opposite. What is profitable are hybrid vehicles, at least for traditional auto OEMs, because their manufacturing process is geared towards ICE vehicles, right? Was really the benefit for Tesla, is because they were an EV first company. So all of their processes, warehouses were geared towards building an electric vehicle, as opposed to, Ford, GM were not, right? It was all made for ICE vehicles. So to rip and replace a lot of that, to rework those systems is very costly. And I think Ford loses something along the lines of 20 grand, or like 25,000 per EV they sell. So who knows? Maybe the future will be a mix of both. Supposedly hybrids are becoming very popular. Yeah, Tom M says hybrid okay, but 100% EV, no crap car makers are canceling. I get it, but I've driven a Tesla Model S and the Tesla Model 3 for the first time, because the building that I'm in now has free Teslas for the residents to use. And it's the most unbelievable driving experience. It's really like a spaceship. It's amazing. It's a great product. So I've never driven a Lucid, but I'm assuming it's a great product. And there's a few. What is that other main EV company that I always mix up with Lucid? There's two of them, but I always... Rivian is the next one, right? Rivian, Lucid. Look, I'm here for the EV revolution. The downside, and it's going to sound kind of crazy, but the United States is a big country, literally, in terms of landmass. So it's going to be difficult to really build out an EV charging infrastructure to make this sustainable countrywide, if that makes sense, which will probably be more sustainable in larger cities. Hence why you're seeing a lot of the autonomous vehicles, which are, by the way, predominantly EVs, being rolled out in major cities. And it's unfortunate that New York really isn't in that mix. They really should. I think whoever is going to be the new administration should really try to be a first mover advantage of getting some of these autonomous companies to New York City, like Waymo and the like. But for smaller countries out there, it is so very doable to have a 100% fully EV infrastructure, charging infrastructure, everything. Now there was a great article about BYD, which is honestly probably the top competitor and the top dog right now so far in the, I would say, the EV competition realm. BYD is doing exceptionally well. Has anybody here ever driven in a BYD vehicle, by the way? Just out of curiosity. Alex S. is Mitsubishi. 50-mile range, cheap, saves money. 50-mile range. That's like nothing. Excuse me. Hey, Papa Smurf OG. Says you've been in a Waymo. Very nice. Never been in a fully autonomous vehicle. The Tesla Model S has the autopilot, but that's not full self-driving. Oh man, the garbage is crazy tonight. Look at all this garbage flying around. It's like, gosh, crazy. When I was in Nevada, look at that. I was in Henderson, Nevada. I saw my first real-life tumbleweed. But here in New York, we have garbage tumbleweeds. Hey, TK Porsche. This is how's the Flatiron project coming along? I'm actually not too sure, to be completely honest with you, but here it is. This is going to be converted into condos. I think it'll probably sell out pretty well, though. The only downside is the values of these condos have probably already been impacted to the downside in a major way. Because look at that. Right here, you used to have the best view of the Empire State Building. Now you just have this monstrosity, condo building. So you don't even really have that great of views here because you're looking right into that building. So I don't know. I mean, same with this building. I mean, imagine owning here. Your Empire State Building views just got absolutely smoked. So think about that in terms of resale value. All right, let's head back uptown because a little bit too windy. This is Madison Square Park. Norris is, do I secure air rights for your clients? It depends. I mean, if we're looking to buy a site to build a building, and if we think that, we could potentially acquire air rights to build higher, then we would do that. But the game of air rights assemblage is not for the faint of heart. I've actually never personally been involved in any of those deals where they've come to close. The only deal I was working on where an air rights purchase would have been a stipulation is that 5 East 59th Street deal, but we lost that deal. I mean, it is very competitive. Now, for the example of, let's say, those Billionaires Row style buildings, right? Like Central Park Tower, 157, Extel and Gary Burnett were accumulating those air rights for decades, like 15 plus years, and doing it very methodically and strategically. And I even believe they had to, for Central Park Tower, you kind of have that cantilever that sticks out a little bit to give you additional Central Park views. So 220 Central Park South doesn't block it. I think they had to purchase the air rights from the Art Student League of New York or something like that. And that wasn't a tough sale. I mean, they had to really hammer them to purchase that. Same thing with Steinway. The Steinway Tower would not have been built if JDS didn't convince the Steinway piano store to essentially sell to them, and then convince the landmark department in New York to be able to build that building, right? Because that is a landmarked building, the Steinway building, not the huge Steinway Tower, but the original Steinway piano building. That is a historically protected landmark building. I think probably the most notable air rights sale as of late is from the Catholic Church to Ken Griffin. And many people were upset because I don't believe the Catholic Church had to pay any taxes on the sale. Because if you are a religious institution, you don't have to pay taxes, I guess. So there were many New Yorkers that were up in arms saying, hey, you just cashed out, you had a good payday from Ken Griffin, and now you don't have to pay any taxes on the sale of those air rights. That's not fair. Which, honestly, I kind of understand the outrage, and that's coming from a Catholic. I get it. So Peters is, how do you determine an encroachment on air rights? It's probably all in the zoning, and you wouldn't be able to build out and over into their airspace, which is a good example of the cantilever, right? Extel wanted to build that cantilever that extends over that Arts Student League of New York, but they couldn't do that until they've acquired the air rights from that building. And it kind of looks awkward from the street, to be honest. If you're standing on street level and you're looking up at Central Park Tower, it almost kind of looks unbalanced a little bit. Looks a little awkward, but interesting piece of engineering for sure. Wow, Sunnysides is a car wash in downtown LA, sold for $25 million 10 years ago, is still fighting for the air rights to build a tower. Oof. See, it's risky. Really, really risky. I actually have a meeting tomorrow near the United Nations with the owner of this big valet parking garage, where we may condominiumize it and sell the individual spaces. I've been pitching that a lot lately because it's very difficult. If you've ever seen the books of a valet parking garage in New York, it's actually become very cumbersome. Many of them are still cash cows like crazy, but it's a difficult business to run with the increased liability, especially with all these EVs and the exotic vehicles. So the pitch is, we could go to the Attorney General, the AG, and file to subdivide the garage, in which case we could generate, let's say if there's 110 spaces in the garage, we could subdivide that and generate 110 different tax lots, right? In which case we could produce a deed on those and sell them off individually as an individual deeded condo sale. So that this is a way for the sponsor or the owner of the garage to have a larger liquidity event than just to sell the garage as a commercial transaction to an investor based on a cap rate or something, right? Say, hey, these are the operations of the garage, these are the financials of the garage. It makes, let's say, $200,000 a year of NOI, or I'm just throwing out a random number. But if you can sell each individual space at a premium, yeah, it may take a little bit longer to sell, but you can kind of wipe your hands clean of the deal at a slight premium, sometimes a large premium depending on where it's located. And then essentially all the owners, once you're about 75% sold, it just creates a condo board. And it's like living in a condo, but you just park your cars there. And you'd be surprised. People in New York City pay between $135,000 to about $175,000 per parking space. I actually just had an accepted offer today, literally today. A gentleman is going to buy 2 spaces at $175,000 each. Cash, $350, wires the money, in which case he'll have those 2 deeded spaces. And pretty much all of the buyers have been predominantly EV buyers, right? I mean, think about if you own, let's say, a townhome on the Upper East Side, right? And you have some kids, you want to buy a car, right? Because you want to, drive upstate New York. You want to go out to the Hamptons or whatnot, but you want the privacy of your own garage. So you're not going to pay the $1,300 a month to, park your EV or whatever it is, $1,000 a month. So if you can install your own charger in the own garage, people will happily write that check. And now if they want to exit, if they want to sell their townhouse, well, now that listing just got a little bit more lucrative, right? Because you're selling an Upper East Side townhouse with 2 deeded parking spaces. It's pretty huge. So it may sound crazy and foreign to most people, but in the Manhattan world, people pay it. I want to be GMOs. Is how much of the property taxes for each spot? I think about $340 a month, I believe. I think your overhead is probably about $500 because, to your point, it is a condo, so you have to pay property taxes, which is roughly $340 a month. And then you got to pay your common charges, right? It's a condo, you got to pay HOA. That's probably about $75 a month. Now the EV charging is interesting, and I've had many meetings with Con Edison. It's either one of two things. They either have an individually metered charger, in which case we would then bill the customer per kilowatt hour, right? We would just charge them per kilowatt hour, or it's just a flat fee. Depends on the garage, depends on a lot of variables. What is this? TLC police. Oh, taxi and limousine police. I never knew that there was a specific police department for taxis and limousines. That's crazy. I never knew that. Wow. I think this is one of the new Toyota hybrids. Or maybe that's an EV. I know, who dat Dave? This is an example of bureaucracy at its finest. The cab drivers in New York City really got the short end of the stick. Particularly, many of them, I would say, got duped into buying these taxi medallions. Predatory lending. A taxi medallion was hundreds of thousands of dollars. And many people bought the taxi medallion thinking that it would be an investment where they could sell it for more later. So they have very high interest loans on these things. And then comes along, Uber and Lyft, and pretty much makes that value a zero. So a taxi medallion used to be like a hot commodity, and now it's pretty much worthless overnight, which is terrible because a lot of cab drivers still owe money to pay off those medallions. It's terrible. Dale says they were ripped off by Uber. I don't know if I would frame it that way, because it was a speculative bubble, just like tulips, just like anything, right? And there was a lot of nefarious, I would have to say allegedly, for the sake of this talk, there was a lot of alleged predatory lending practices on these medallions, in my humble opinion. So just because Uber comes out with a great product doesn't mean that Uber's the bad guy, right? There's always going to be collateral damage to innovation. Oh, this is the Morgan Library. I just casually stroll past one of the best museums in New York City. But yeah, this is the Morgan Library. It's an amazing place. I haven't been back in a long time. Maybe I'll go this weekend to the Morgan Library. Last weekend I went to the Guggenheim Museum, which is just an amazing place. Amazing, amazing place. Guggenheim. Hey, 10 Red Bluff, thank you so much for joining. Appreciate it. I know it's been a long night, but I appreciate you. Samantha R, what's going on? If you guys are enjoying the stream, feel free to leave a like on the video. Click the subscribe button if you're new. I wonder what this place is on the right. Maybe a steakhouse? K barbecue, maybe? Zumba. All right, 39th and Madison. I think this is a Model Y. Hey, MC, what's up? Yeah, long time no see. Good to see you. We had a myriad of topics tonight. Now, tomorrow, isn't the White House going to host some sort of cryptocurrency event? That should be interesting. I don't know if that's going to be streamed live. I feel like it should, but I don't think it will be live. I'll probably have to tune into, I don't know, some news channel to see how that went. I believe Michael Saylor, CEO of MicroStrategy, has been invited to that. We'll see how that goes. WBC says yes, and he will also sign more executive orders at 3 p.m. More executive orders. Now, is it just me? And look, I don't care what you think of Trump. I respect all political opinions. It seems like he's been like a minigun for executive orders. I feel like every time I turn on X, there's a clip of Trump signing some sort of executive order. He must have the most executive orders out of any president in history. It's like a Gatling gun of executive orders. Yeah, Stephen Bate. I wonder what I'm very curious about the format of this so-called crypto event, because I feel as if it can be botched in a major way. And I don't want this to be a big missed opportunity. I really don't want this to be a missed opportunity, because this could be a huge opportunity, not to like gaslight the Bitcoin and crypto community, just to say, oh, we love Bitcoin, we love crypto, we're going to buy. That's not what we're looking for. What we're looking for is like normal regulatory framework so that companies could be built, capital could flow, not just have the government buy a bunch of cryptocurrencies, right? Which I know some of the degenerates want that. But if you want sustainable value creation in the space and job growth in America around, stable coins, DeFi, you need a solid framework. So hopefully will be some discussion on that. All right, everyone, with that being said, It is getting late, and we are coming up on hour 2. I think I'm going to head home because it's kind of windy. But thank you all for joining. We made it through another week. Another volatile week, but definitely another week. If you enjoyed the stream, feel free to leave a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, and feel free to join us here again tomorrow, live from New York City, right at 8:45. So Scott, thank you so much. Stephen Bate, Nora, Joseph Hardaway, VLT Prod, thank you so much. Paul K, Joe Driver, Philip, Mike G, all of our moderators, MD, Austin City Limits, Samantha. See you guys tomorrow. Happy Friday. Mohammed, thank you for joining.